Right, the year was 1990. Studios were hot for action movies because just a couple of years earlier...
Were they thirsting?
They were thirsting hard. Just a couple of years earlier, Die Hard proved that action movies can be fucking blockbusters. Remember we talked about Joel Silver saying, before action movies were just when you have a gap in the schedule, pump out an action movie, throw a little Van Damme in there, throw a little Stallone, Arnold in there. Die Hard changed everything. This genre was on fire. And July 4th weekend, 1990, was when Die Hard 2 came out.
Wow.
And it really hit home for a couple of writers by the name of Mike Werb and Michael Collery.
Never a dull moment with you reading out names.
Today, Junior.
They decided to have a crack. They're like, hey, we're going to get on this sweet, sweet action movie action, so to speak. It's 1990. Die Hard 2's just come out. It's 4th of July.
There's a trend here, people.
There's a trend here. There's a gap in the market. So they initially started with an idea that was heavily inspired by a movie called White Heat. I haven't seen that movie. Apparently there's some link. Maybe it's a prison thing. I don't know. But it started as like a guy that escapes a prison riot, yada, yada. It evolved rapidly. There's some revisions in between. But they landed on this idea with the face swappings.
Yeah.
To make it seem realistic, they were like, well, it needs to be in the future.
Yeah.
100 years in the future. So they set it in the future. There were chimp slaves. There were homeless people living on an abandoned Golden Gate Bridge. This is the future.
You're describing a good movie. It's a dystopia by the sounds of it.
Of course, classic.
I love a dystopia, as you know, and I've probably mentioned.
I love a dystopia. I love 80s
Yeah,
future.
that's right. You do. You love the brutalism.
Or 60s. Like I like Kubrick's Future.
Yeah, I never saw it.
2001 Space Odyssey. Anyway,
2001.
They were like, face swapping. That's
2001's the past, just FYI.
Now, yeah.
But earlier. They're face swapping.
The face swapping is like, hey, we're a bit far away from that. Let's put it 100 years in the future.
Makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense.
I'm on board with this.
Yeah, yeah. And who, out of all people, who do you think snaps this thing up and options it for $100,000? Mr. Joel Silver himself, Mr. Die Hard himself, Mr. Predator himself.
Yeah. Mr.
Not
Tom
bad.
Cruise in Tropic Thunder himself.
Exactly. They've done it. They've done it. They've sold the script. This shit's happening, but not really, because you know what? Option doesn't mean it's getting made.
We've learnt that, haven't we?
Yeah.
They just buy it up. It's like a land grab too.
Exactly.
It's a competitive what's the word I'm looking for here?
Land grab.
Yeah, that's just
It was optioned for 18 months and they hit a few roadblocks. Apparently, I was reading an interview with these guys and they were saying these Warner Brothers gang with the Joel Silvers were like, I don't know, man, that's going to take a lot of makeup for these people to switch identities. Like,
no.
They'll play each other.
Because but how do they do that? They're different people. Well, they're actors.
Exactly. So needless to say, that kind of fizzled. Next stop was Paramount. And they went through a few different directors. So I'll just quickly do a little checklist of the directors that went through and the directions it was taking, shall we say. So enter director 1, Rob Cohen, famous for the Fast and the Furious, OG Fast and the Furious.
Oh.
Triple X.
Yeah.
So most of it has Vin Diesel vehicles.
He's a Vin guy.
He's a Vin guy.
He's in the Vin Diesel business.
Vin's doing the movie. The Mummy 3, Dragonheart, which I feel like is a movie for you.
I am the last one.
And
is that Dragonheart?
I think so. He did Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. He did Daylight. So he's done a lot of movies actually. So he's done a lot of movies, but I wouldn't say he's one of my guys.
He's a mid-tierist.
Yeah. And his angle on it was like, well, what if they teamed up at the end to defuse the bomb together? And they were like, no, let's not do that.
Why?
I don't know. I've given a little flavor for each director's angle in this movie. That was his angle. It didn't work out. He left the picture. Second director enters, Mr. Marco Brambilla. If that sounds familiar, that's Demolition Man guy.
Oh, yep.
He says, let's go young. I want to get me a young Johnny Depp in this picture. A 27-year-old Johnny Depp.
Is Johnny Depp 27 at this time?
Yeah.
How old's Johnny Depp now? 27?
50 or something.
50. I thought he might have been a little older.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
He's been around since he was a kid, I guess.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. But apparently the term face-off is something commonly used in the game of hockey or ice hockey, as we may call it in warmer continents.
It's a game. The game, the EA Sports game, isn't that an NHL face-off?
It's called a face-off. Oh, I don't know. Well, apparently he was
I might have made that up.
He assumed it was a hockey movie, and when he found out it wasn't, he was like, not interested, buddy. I want that sweet, sweet hockey money.
He assumed it was a hockey movie about two guys who swap faces. How far in did he realise that it wasn't that?
It was like at the last page of the script. Wait a second.
Finn means the end. Sorry.
Needless to say, that didn't work out either. Enter the third and final director. Enter the Woo. John Woo was someone that the Mikes had stumbled across in seeing his Hong Kong pictures. He'd just made Broken Arrow with Travolta, so things were falling into place. He was kind of he was starting to make it in the US.
Is that his as well?
Yeah. And I've got a bit more on John Woo later, so I won't go into a huge John Woo background here. Mm-hmm. But he's ready. Like the stars have aligned. He's kind of proven himself in the US with Broken Arrow, and Travolta's there, so that kind of everything's coming into place. Cage was already interested. This holy trinity of amazingness converges on this picture called Face Off, and he makes a few calls. He decides, you know what, this shouldn't be in the future. I want to focus on the characters. I want to focus on the drama and the family. And if we're in the future, it's all going to be about the special effects and the slave monkeys and all that shit. I want it to be grounded. I want this movie about swapping faces to be grounded in a very real story. And so he did that. And in reading this was an interview I read, and he wanted to set it in 2002. And I was waiting for the part where they said why they didn't set it in 2002. Never came. So I think maybe this film was, in theory, set in the slight future, a bit of a Demolition Man scenario. Remember how the opening of Demolition Man, a movie made in 1993, set in 1996, just so the premise would seem feasible?
Yeah. Scientists just need a few more years.
Yeah.
The 3D printers are going to be ready.
It's an interesting call to make. He's all about the drama, the characters, that kind of shit. I'll get into more of that later. I've got a little bit of a John Woo detour later. But, man, this shit's firing. They got a post-Pulp Fiction Travolta. They got a post-Con Air Cage. They got John Woo. Sparks were about to fly, literally and figuratively.
They got Gina Gershon.
They got the Gersh. Man, what else do you need? They're taking a massive swing here. Other people working on the movie were like, this could be a fucking disaster. What are these people doing? Why is he wiping his hand over their face? That was an improv thing, apparently. It's weird because it hits the lip. Like,
there's a lot of it.
And they all do it to each other.
They all do it.
It's weird.
It's stupid. I don't like it. It was unnecessary. We get it. The movie's about face swapping.
Just to round out casting, there are a couple of pre-castings that I have not mentioned up until this point, but they're pretty juicy. So in the early days of this script being pitched, it was very much just Stallone and Schwarzenegger vehicle, which is crazy and interesting, but also kind of shows you the kind of altitude at which this was being pitched.
That would have been in the Joel Silver.
Exactly. That's like direct in the wheelhouse of Lap Pack.
Yeah.
Just churn and burn, baby. Let's just pump out.
It's a different movie.
I don't know how they would have done the voices. There would have been quite a microchip to be put in your larynx.
It would be big.
Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford, another duo.
Michael Douglas is the executive.
He ended up being
EP. The EP. Continue.
Jean-Claude Van Damme was in the mix as well at certain points. Of course, none of
with
that.
Steven Seagal, I believe.
Yeah, I heard that. It'd be interesting, I suppose.
They don't like each other.
Yeah.
So there would have been a lovely chemistry of friction, a frictionless chemistry.
But yeah, I can't imagine the impersonations of each other, how that would work.
Well, they'd need a lot more change than their faces.
Yeah.
I would love to see a Steven Seagal in part 3. He should lose some weight. So no, joke on the side.
Yeah.
So he can be a little more fast.
He's put on the pounds.
I met the guy a few times. He's a nice guy. Doesn't like me much. I like him a lot. Good guy. Good charisma. He's got something special on the screen. I would love to see him there. Yeah.
Why doesn't he like you?
Well, this is all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And this movie is so dependent on the casting that each of those is such a different movie, potentially much shitter. As much as I love the idea of some of those, the execution, how could you execute it? So it's interesting. But in terms of who we ended up with, of course, we had Nicolas Cage as Castor Troy / Archer. We had Travolta as Archer / Troy. And Alessandro Nivola as Pollux Troy.
What are these names? Castor and Pollux?
It's like some Greek mythology or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So they hustled these people in front of some cameras, a couple of slow-mos, some guns, and bish bash bosh. It goes sell for movie, rap party at the Viper Room.